I'm strong. Hey, hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 14, Episode 15, also known as, well, the RuUnion episode. And before we get started, well, I've got some tipperdoos to thank, of course I do. Don Rowlands wished me a happy birthday week and thanked me for all the laughs. Tammy Bledsoe sent me a tipperdoo via my link tree on Instagram, as did Kirsten Adamson. Thank you, ladies. Mwah! And, of course, it wouldn't be a tipperdoo thank you without thanking my tipperdoo boyfriend, Vito. I love you, doll. Seriously. I also want to welcome Chloe Save the Victory Roll to the Fingerdoo family on Patreon. She's a princess, don't you know? Welcome, Chloe. If you'd like to help support this channel with a tipperdoo or by joining the fabulous Fingerdoo family on Patreon, all the links are down below in the description box. Now, Jorge, drink me. Oh, ooh, I'm dripping. Oh. And I'm talking about the cocktail. A fabulous pink pucker. Thank you, Jorge. Oh, I had to take an extra long sip. That's extra puckery this week. And I'm okay with that. Now, let's get started. Can I just say, after this never-ending season, they had a lot of nerve having a reunion episode, didn't they? Just end it already. Am I right? Seriously. But it was good to see the queens, especially the ones who'd been eliminated early. June looked fantastic, but then I think that's down to how lackluster her entrance look was. Maddie Morphous's makeup was stunning too, although I'm getting sick and tired of these mullet wigs that seem to have become the rage. Jasmine looked gorgeous too. She's obviously upped her wig game with that sculpted deliciousness on her head. And yes, sculpted deliciousness was my drag queen name in high school. In fact, the only queen I wasn't impressed with was Bosco. I hated what she was wearing. She looked like a Muppet version of a punk rocker, but that could have been the fist up her ass. I will say this, though. I had forgotten a few things that had happened this season. Anyone else? Seriously, like Lizzo in her ode to Tina Turner in Thunderdome. How could I forget that? She looked fabulous. Oh, and by the way, have you seen her Amazon Prime reality series, Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls? You should. It's really, really great. Also, do you remember Alicia Keys being in the workroom mirror? It had completely slipped my mind. How could I forget about Alicia Keys? Actually, as a Canadian, how could I forget Sarah McLachlan also made an appearance? Seriously. She's right there. This season also gave us one of the worst Snatch Games ever and, well, one of the best musicals we've seen in a long time. And of course, there's the queens. Although Cornbread left the season early, we still got a vivid glimpse into her childhood and how it was to be so harshly judged by her mother and the rest of her family. Happily, though, she did go home to perform, and her family all turned out to support her, which is happy to hear. Just a Cornbread's family, seriously. Get on board. One segment that was the theme through the whole reunion was Clash of the Queens. But more to the point, this was mostly the queens clashing with Jasmine, poor thing. I have to say, it was a blessing in disguise for Cornbread that she left early because, well, her issues with Jasmine surely would have eclipsed her time on the show. Hell, they were starting to eclipse her by episode 3. Jasmine just couldn't win around Cornbread. If Cornbread had left it to, there's a difference between talking and having a conversation, it would have been fine. But Jasmine couldn't listen, write, or breathe around Cornbread without being wrong. Bless her heart. Seriously. I have to say, I was surprised that Jasmine thanked Cornbread for being one of the only queens to say anything to her about her verbal diarrhea. But that still didn't stop Cornbread from pointing out that Jasmine interrupted her to do it. Maybe Cornbread just doesn't like being cut off. We're not friends, I think. I completely agree with LC because I was also impressed with how positive Jasmine was able to be despite Cornbread's constant berating. Although, I don't think I'd have compared Jasmine to a cockroach to do it. I'm just saying. The only person who came off worse than Cornbread with her issues towards Jasmine was Daya. And I still feel that's because Cornbread left early. Can you imagine what it would have been like for Jasmine if she'd been tag teamed by both Daya and Cornbread? Seriously. Did neither of these queens learn anything from watching Britta bullying Aiden Zane? I ask you. Nothing. I have to say, as much as I like Daya as a queen, I was so disappointed in how much she let her issues with Jasmine bother her throughout the season. Even though she wasn't the only person having those issues, Daya was the only one saying them out loud, and clearly, in retrospect, it did her no favors. Daya did not look happy during the playback of her attacking Jasmine and then also Georges, but true to her character, Daya still had no regrets about saying what was on her mind and expressing her feelings. I don't know, she started crying pretty quick is all I'm going to say. The one thing that I feel Daya got wrong was accusing Jasmine of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. I don't think Jasmine ever said anything wrong. Daya's real issue seemed to be that Jasmine said anything at all. Bless. And then we had our first blow up of the reunion. Jasmine said that Daya dragged her for 9 weeks straight and that Daya would attack people just to feel better about herself, which is true. We all saw the same show. That's exactly what Daya was doing. Georges chimed in by saying she felt Daya didn't respect them. I don't know if that's true, but she certainly didn't give them any space, is all I'm saying. Daya cried and said she's not that person. Well, she was, at least for a hot minute. I just wish, no matter how Daya felt or how she justified her feelings, that she could have taken the high road and agreed that she handled the situation in the worst way possible, as opposed to trying to justify her actions. Certainly didn't help, that's just all I'm saying. Even at the time when she was just being honest and asking if anyone else felt the same way, queens like Willow, Bosco, and even Lady Camden, just to name a few, said they did, but the difference between them and Daya was they kept their feelings to themselves. They didn't just spew their opinions the moment they got butthurt. Hopefully, the lesson is to think before you speak, especially when the interwebs are watching. I also think it was telling that Jasmine claimed Daya never called her after the show, that she only says what she says when the cameras are rolling. How RuPaul of her. I am glad that June defended Daya by saying everyone handles stress differently and that she knows Daya not to be the queen she came off as. Everyone needs a champion, I'm just saying. Here's to June. Seriously. God bless Carrie for saying that accountability is important and that stress is real. I think everyone who's ever left a comment on the interwebs needs to remember that. Seriously. It was also a choice for Maddie to defend Daya by saying Jasmine said some hateful things in the confessionals. But let me say this. That's what the confessionals are for. I give kudos to Jasmine for not attacking anyone to their face when they were doing that exact same thing to her. Seriously. Speaking of Maddie, she was another one who had issues with Jasmine. Those two got into it in the Untucked Lounge. I remember watching that fight and thinking, who are you kidding, Maddie? You can say what you want, but Jasmine's still going to send you home. Was I wrong? The one clash of the queens that had nothing to do with Jasmine, mostly because she'd been eliminated by then, was Bosco and LC vying for the role of Saltine in the Rusical. Of course, Bosco didn't think she was wrong in fighting for the part. She just wished she hadn't been so mean about it. And more than a few of the queens agreed. Lady Camden had long since let it go because, at the end of the day, she won the challenge. And then they fake screamed at each other for a hot minute while I enjoyed my pucker. You heard me. Oh. Then we moved our focus from the haters to the lovers, specifically Angie and Lady Camden's friendship/relationship. They were so cute together, but then I have to say, it's got to be near impossible for anyone not to look cute with Angie. She's just a lovely soul. In fact, they both are. Look at them, seriously. Something I questioned during my reviews was Georges' secret romance with the Ryan story. Remember? There was some serious shoulder rubbing going on. This was no mystery to the rest of the queens. They saw something a brewing, but it doesn't sound like it went much further than the show. Hey. Not every romance blossoms into a relationship, I'm just saying. Speaking of queenly love, Cornbread got a tattoo of Willow on her thigh. I remember seeing that on the Instas. I also love that Cornbread said, you can find your soulmate outside of a relationship. Here's the soulmates, seriously. It wasn't all popping off and throwing shade at the RuUnion. We also talked about Jasmine coming out as trans in Untucked. It was such a raw, emotional moment that even with some of the cast feeling a certain way about Jasmine, the love and support that she got in that room was beautiful to see. Jasmine also talked about how worried she was about how her dad would react to her coming out. It was good to hear that Jasmine's dad, and family for that matter, supported her no matter what. Just the support from the family. There's a lot of drinking going on. Can we also have a moment to praise Carrie Colby for how funny and lovely and supportive she is and was throughout this whole season? For me, she was the star of the reunion, and I can honestly say, if she hadn't been there, this whole thing would have been much harder to watch. Here's to Carrie Colby! Seriously. What was even more impressive was Willow, Cornbread, and Bosco also coming out as trans after filming. As Carrie said, it's the most trans-tastic season ever. I was sorry to hear that Cornbread had some issues coming out to her family, but I do love to hear Cornbread saying she couldn't preach about loving herself without actually loving herself. Here's to Cornbread. Seriously. Then we tooted and booted a bunch of looks, and, well, there were no surprises there. But what was a surprise was having La La Ree via video to award this year's Golden Boot. And this year, it was a tie. Maddie and Mr. Morphosis got that honor. As Maddie said, at least she won something. The early eliminated queens got a chance to read the house down, and although not all of them were winners, Maddie telling June to change her name to February due to how short her time on the show was funny. But Elsie saying every time she looks at Maddie, she thinks, oh man, was way funnier. Cornbread comparing Deja to Jesus because they both only have 12 followers was hilarious. There were a couple other queens who tried, but as my grandmother said, if you can't say anything nice. So, that was the season 14 cast, RuUnited. Did it make you feel so good? Did the reunion change your opinion of anyone? Did it galvanize any opinions you have of the queens? How about that top 5? Has your choice for winner changed or become more solidified? How about the finale? Are you as excited as I am to see an audience actually at the finale for a change? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and check out my links in the description box for ways to support me and my channel if you feel so moved to do so. And until the finale, miss me! Mwah! Seriously. I don't mind the reunion. I understand why they do the reunion episodes. I mean, it's just another cash grab, but after dragging this season out so long, how much cash do they all need? Seriously. I'm just going to say it. I hope that Lady Camden wins. I think that of the 5 of them, that she, played the best game. I think she improved at a good speed. I think that she, even at her lowest, respected all the other queens. And she listened to what the judges said and improved as required. I don't think anyone did a better job than her. Angie, as much as I love her, she disappointed me. She really kind of started to fade into the woodwork there. I'm glad they kept her around, but she could have gone home last week. We could have had a top 4, let's be honest. To be serious, I don't care who wins. I think they're all good. I'm not as much of a fan as Bosco as I was at the beginning of the season, and that's really not down to anything more than I just was getting bored of her, no offense. I think she's funny, I think she's clever, but her drag is kind of one note, and I don't know. The other queen that impressed me, despite herself, was Diabetti. I know I'm not going to win friends and influence people by saying that, but I do think that Dia also really, once she kind of stopped looking like Crystal Method, I'm going to say it again, I never thought she looked like Crystal Method. Maybe I need glasses.